What is going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC Fight Night Jan versus Dvalishvili main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, March 11th, 2023 at the Theater at Virgin Hotels in Paradise, Nevada in Las Vegas. At first, I thought it was going to be in the Apex, but I think this is a pretty solid card for a fight night. It's like kind of old school in the little studio, in the little theater at the Virgin Hotels. So that's pretty interesting to see how that atmosphere will be. But I think overall, the main card looking pretty solid. And yeah, I don't think this is going to be a throwaway card. I feel like there's some pretty good matchups on here, and it should be pretty exciting. Did pretty well last event, went 10-4. Obviously, a great night of fights. Really glad to see John Jones back in there. Glad to see a lot of the other contenders come up to win their fights. Alexa Grasso defeating Valentina Shevchenko. I mean, there's a lot going on over there. We'll see how it all plays out. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I want to talk about the main card. So let's go ahead and jump into the first fight on the main card. In the first fight on the main card, we have Vitor Petrino, 7-0, taking on Anton Turkalj in a light heavyweight bout, 8-1 for Turkalj. This is a pretty decent opener to the main card. I think they're probably expecting someone to get finished here. So, pop it off pretty violently. For Petrino, gonna be pretty aggressive. I mean, just looking at looking at this picture they have of him, he's pretty jacked. He's jacked out of his mind. And he's gonna come forward, be the aggressor probably. Some of his shot selection is a little questionable against someone who could probably just counter that. And obviously probably look for Turkalj to take a little bit of advantage of Petrino being a little bit too aggressive, because I do think his defense can go out the window a little bit. But if he lands one of those big hooks, he's pretty heavy-handed. I mean, I'm sure Petrino can put anyone out. The other thing, too, is with all that muscle, with all that aggression, if you're able to survive that, let the fight go a little bit, Turkalj might be able to come back in there and see if he can work in the latter rounds if Petrino starts to tire a little bit. And I wouldn't even be surprised to see Turkalj take Petrino down, or at least attempt to slow him down a little bit. He's going to have to slow him down because I think Petrino's going to come out pretty aggressive, and if he's not able to deal with that, I mean, Turkall's going to get put away. In Turkall's last fight, we saw him take on Almeida, Jalton Almeida. That was a pretty impressive win for Almeida. Obviously, we know him with the grappling and all that. He took him down 3 times. Turkalj really had no answer for that. But I don't see like Petrino being the one to just constantly grapple Turkalj. So I don't think it's even remotely going to be a similar fight like that. I think the biggest thing Turkalj has to do is slow down the fight, deal with the aggression early on, counter when he can. But like I said, it's going to be very hard for him to do that. And I think Petrino, I mean, I don't look at Turkalj. I'm not saying Petrino is going to be like the next coming or anything like that. But also when I look at Turkalj, I don't really feel confident in saying that, he's going to drag it over 3 rounds. He's going to tire him out. He's going to mix in the grappling. He's going to counter the hell out of Petrino, take advantage of his aggression. Like, I just don't see him doing all that. So I do think Petrino will be able to come forward, get in his face, start landing some big bombs, and try to put him away. So I'm going to go Vitor Petrino. I'll take him to defeat Anton Turkalj. I'll take him to win by round 1 KO TKO. In the second fight on the main card, we have Said Nurmagomedov, 17-2, taking on Jonathan Martinez, 17-4. So pretty close records in a bantamweight bout. And these are two solid contenders in this division. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen here. For Said Nurmagomedov, yes, his last name is Nurmagomedov, but he technically doesn't have a relationship, like a family relation to Khabib Nurmagomedov. So this is also one of the Nurmagomedovs where I don't think he's diving in for takedowns consistently. He's not the one trying to go in for those takedowns a lot. He can definitely grapple, but it's not something that he's constantly looking for. And so that's the little bit of a different thing here. So I think he also feels a little bit more confident keeping the fight standing. He does have some pretty good attacks on the feet. I would say, though, his especially in his last fight against Romanov, where he ended up winning in the second round via submission, and he was the one getting taken down, but he was able to get the reversal. And so that's a thing where even if you take him down, he's going to put up a fight on the ground. He's going to grapple a lot, and he can definitely cause some problems. He can go for those defensive submissions. He's a very tough fighter. He has a lot of spinning back kicks. He'll definitely try to be a little bit of a flashy fighter. And I would say, too, Nurmagomedov needs space for his game. So if you're able to cut off the octagon, get in his face, you don't really give him that opportunity to even go for any of these spinning attacks or anything where he can kick you, basically. And you're going to be able to kind of shut him down. And so that's why I think if Martinez can mix in wrestling and pressure and stay aggressive in his face and then work him against the fence, he might be able to shut down Nurmagomedov. But like I said, Nurmagomedov, even if he's getting out grappled or even if he's getting put in a bad situation, he can also do his own grappling, reverse, defensive submissions. And so you got to be keep an eye out for that. For Jonathan Martinez coming in this fight, he's coming off that win over Cub Swanson, and I think that was a pretty impressive win for him. I obviously I know Cub Swanson isn't like the number one contender or anything like that, but I do think he's one of those guys you got to beat to get to that next level. And so to see Martinez basically keep going after his legs, go to his body, and eventually took his leg out, and he got the KO, TKO, the leg stoppage, basically the leg TKO. I think that's pretty impressive. And also at the same time, I think Martinez can work in some of the grappling. Now, he didn't necessarily have to do that in that fight because I think he was just pretty... I mean, he has also some good stand-up as well with his punches. His boxing's pretty clean. His pressure's pretty good. And those leg kicks, man, whether it's to the body or to the legs, to the arms, I mean, that shit's going to take a dividend. And I don't know if Nurmagomedov is going to be able to keep countering off those for like a takedown or something. And then I'm also not too sure that Martinez isn't able to defend the grappling if he does. So I can see Martinez being able to land these pretty solid leg kicks. And I don't know how much Nurmagomedov will be able to take. But it could be a pretty competitive fight because both guys, Nurmagomedov will definitely kick. Martinez is going to kick. Their grappling might be able to cancel each other out. It might be a battle up against the fence. But I think it'll be a pretty entertaining fight. And Martinez has been on a 4-fight win streak. I think that win over Cub Swanson, like I said, was pretty impressive. Showed that like his kicking game is pretty nasty. He has pretty decent stand up as well. And I think he's pretty underrated in my opinion in this fight. I think a lot of people, they see that Nurmagomedov and they're like, oh, I already know who I'm picking or whatever. And that's not to say that Nurmagomedov can't win this fight, obviously. But I do think Martinez isn't gonna like go down as easily, right? I think can grapple. He can defensively grapple. His stand-up is clean. He has the dangerous kicks, which, like I said, if he's able to keep landing those on Nurmagomedov, he's going to take away a lot of that movement. And, what is he going to do then, right? On top of that, Martinez is probably going to try to close the distance, get in front of him, lock him down so he can't keep moving everywhere and doing the spinning kicks to the wherever. So for me, I don't want to discount Jonathan Martinez, and so that makes me want to pick him. So I'm going to go Jonathan Martinez to defeat Said Nurmagomedov. I'll take him to win by decision. And then we move on into the third fight on the main card. We have Ricardo Ramos, 16-4, in a featherweight bout, taking on Austin Lingo, 9-1. Now, Ricardo Ramos coming into this one at 145. So I think this is where it needs to be. Because when he was in the other... Now, granted, we only saw one fight, right? So technically, we only saw him in this one fight. So we can't really, with 100% confidence, I guess, say that, oh, man, he's looking crazy or whatever. But I will say that, like, not having to cut down, because he did win some fights, obviously, at the lower weight division. But his energy, I felt like, wasn't there. Maybe the cardio, the weight cut was too much. And he definitely started to slow down in some of those fights. Like, even against Tuhugov. I mean, granted, he did land some pretty nice shots in that fight. But I still feel like with Tuhugov's grappling, the ability to get the wrestling going, he landed 2 takedowns. And then he outstruck him a little bit. But Ramos, I think, started to slow down in that fight. And I feel like he can do a little bit better if he's not having to make that weight cut. And I think we didn't really get to see opposition in his last fight because Danny Chavez just wasn't able to get anything going before he got absolutely crushed. But, I mean, Ricardo Ramos came out pretty fast and looked really confident. He's known for hitting that spinning back fist. Solid chopping leg kicks. Just not a guy you want to just stand in front of and let him just start lighting you up. Now, granted, with Austin Lingo, he probably doesn't really care, right? So he'll be willing to take abuse, right? He's gonna take the damage, and then he's gonna try to come back, probably, right? He'll try to, you've hit me with everything you got. I'm gonna keep coming forward. I'm gonna stay in your face. See if he can do anything. I think he might even try to get the takedown in this one. I think he'll definitely try to get some wrestling going. I know, granted, in his first fight, he got taken down by Zalal 6 times, and then he got taken down by Jacob Kilburn 1 time, and then in his last fight, he didn't get any takedowns in his last fight. He didn't really go for any takedowns in his last fight, but when some of these guys are fighting, because I do think Ramos is probably going to have the better arsenal on the feet, a little bit better precision. He's going to go after the leg, go after the body, some fast hands. Obviously, the spinning attack that comes out of absolutely nowhere. But he'll probably try to throw all that at him. But Lingo's going to try banking on eating a lot of it, blocking it, whatever, and then keep coming forward. He'll be bloodied or whatever. And then he's going to bank on probably trying to test Ramos's cardio, basically. Test his grit, see how far he can take him. But I think Ricardo Ramos, being at 145, not having to cut weight like he was, it's got to pay a benefit. So I don't want to count out Ramos until we see how he looks in this one. If Ramos, we get into that second round, he's like, oh, he's just absolutely gassed, he looks like shit, then yeah, of course, Austin Lingo probably is going to be able to take over the fight, maybe get a late finish or just win a decision, because Lingo's very tough. He's gonna stand. He's really gonna stand in the pocket. He'll get in your face, eat some shots, make it a war. And I just don't see Ramos winning a war. But like I said, until I see that happen, I still have to go with Ricardo Ramos. He's very dangerous, very aggressive, has a more fight experience, and you can't deny some of those attacks that he throws. At the end of the day, if he lands a spinning back elbow to anyone, he can put him to sleep, regardless if they can take damage. Or just any kind of crazy attack where he definitely has KO power. So we'll see how this one plays out. But yeah, I'm expecting Ricardo Ramos to try to finish this one early like he did last time. Be super aggressive, get in his face, start lighting him up to the body. Just a lot of combinations, see if he can put him away. So I'm going to go Ricardo Ramos to defeat Austin Lingo. I'll take him to win by round 2, KO TKO. And so we move on into the 4th fight on the main card, and this was going to be the main event last week, the week before last week, but unfortunately it fell out because Krylov had an illness, whatever that may be. 29-9 for Krylov, 21-7 for Ryan Spann, in a catchweight bout too as well. It's at 215, I think, so that'll be interesting to see both fighters not having to cut that kind of weight, or maybe they had to add a little bit of a weight. Now, obviously, just that whole entire story right there makes me a little bit concerned for Krylov. What illness? What was it? Who knows what it was? And then obviously at the same time, how does that going to affect him going forward? We've seen so many times where a fighter says, I had the flu, I had this, I had that. And then, they're still recovering from it. Technically, it's not like they got better overnight. And then they make the excuse of, I went in there and fought, but I wasn't at 100%, right? No one really is ever at 100%, but obviously coming off of whatever you're, like a flu or something, a staph infection, who knows, right? It's not ideal situation at this kind of level, fighting a guy like Ryan Spann. It can mess with your cardio as well, slow you down a little bit. So I kind of already talked about this one last week. Obviously, it was the main event, or not last week, the week before the main event. But just to go over it again here, Krylov, I would probably take Krylov because I don't think this is a 5-round fight anymore. I think it's a 3-round fight. Krylov in a 5-round fight probably has the ability to fight technical, use the grappling / wrestling when he needs to, try and not get taken out in that first round, and then kind of just tire out Spann and just be the better mixed martial artist, use the better tools. But he has to get past that first round. And we're also anticipating that Ryan Spann goes for it too much in that first round and kind of gasses himself out, doesn't act patient. And so if Ryan Spann acts patient, he could still destroy Krylov in the second or third round. It just depends on how he fights, right? Like if he comes out a little bit too crazy with it, Krylov could probably take advantage of that, slow the fight down a little bit. I mean, he's still dangerous on his feet as well. Good head kicks. Obviously has the ability to submit people if he can get the fight to the ground. But it's, again, with that sickness and whatnot, and both guys not having to probably cut down to 205 again. We'll have to see especially what Ryan Spann looks like. But I like that Ryan Spann showed up. He was ready to go. I think what was it, like an hour before the fight is when Krylov had to pull out or something. So you don't know what that. It doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter. And why is it at 215 instead of 205, right? It's like because of Krylov's illness. Who knows, right? I don't know. But for me, Ryan Spann, early on, if he paces himself and threatens with that KO power and just tees off on Krylov, like I could see him finishing him. And I understand, obviously, Spann could make like a big whopping mistake and get clipped and then go rolling on the floor and Krylov just submits him. I understand that, but something just tells me that like Ryan Spann is going to come into this one with a calmed aggression and just badly hurt Krylov and then put him down. And I think that sequence happens pretty early. So I'm going to go Ryan Spann. I'll take him to defeat Nikita Krylov. I'll take him to win by round 1 KO TKO. In the fifth fight, in the co-main event of the evening, we have Alexander Volkov, 35-10, taking on Alexander Romanov, 16-1, in a heavyweight bout. Alexander Volkov, we know both of these guys really, but obviously Alexander Volkov, we've seen him around a lot. He's been a veteran in the game, kickboxing, all that stuff. Now, the one thing that he struggles with the most, in my opinion, is grappling, right? So with a guy like Romanov who's going to come in here and just, he has the ability to probably just pick Volkov up, slam him on his back or whatever. That is a little concerning, right? Because Volkov, now granted though, Volkov's takedown defense isn't the worst thing in the world, but if he does get taken down by a super aggressive, so I feel like if he gets taken down by Tom Aspinall, if he gets taken down by Curtis Blades, I feel like most likely he's going to get taken down by Romanov. But it's just a matter of like, is Romanov going to be able to finish him when he's on the floor? Is Volkov going to be able to get back up if he does get back up? Because we've seen Romanov fight and I feel like he plays it a little bit too safe. I mean, obviously he has the ability to submission. He has the ability to finish via ground and pound. But sometimes I feel like, against Marcin Tybura, he just let that fight go a little bit too much. And, he landed 2 of 6 takedowns. And then Tybura was kind of just able to be the little bit more active fighter, barely, like obviously just barely, but he was able to show that he was a little bit more aggressive and he was the one pushing forward, and Romanov was definitely tiring out a little bit. So for me, it's just a matter of like, can Volkov do enough on the feet? Can he hurt him enough on the feet to where we got Romanov shooting in for the takedown, but Volkov's like, when the fight's standing, he's doing more, right? And obviously Volkov has to go into this fight knowing that's going to happen. Like, not can I defend the takedown, but what's going to happen after he does take me down. And then on the feet, right, going for like, he has to be super aggressive on the feet. Every time the fight gets on the feet, Volkov has to be pressing forward, lighting him up to the body, going to his, just throwing all kinds of strikes, dropping in his elbows in there, pushing him against the fence. He has to go for it and fight at range too. Obviously, watch out going for those kicks because Romanov is going to try to counter them into a takedown. Now, Romanov's hands on the feet are also pretty decent, but I personally would still side with Volkov on the feet. I just think that range can cause some problems. Has pretty good jab, good elbows too. I mean, he can definitely hurt you. Stinging shots too, right? Because Volkov can use that range to his advantage. It's just that biggest concern is like, if he gets taken down, man, is he going to be able to get up, or is he gonna just get full mounted and it's all over? Like, I guess that could happen. Like, it probably will now, right? That's kind of what makes more sense. I don't know. I'm a little sketched out by Romanov because we've seen Alexander Volkov. Now, granted, those fights were 5 rounds, but still, we've seen Alexander Volkov basically be able to come back in a fight or kind of use his volume to his advantage. I mean, he took out Walt Harris, he took out Alistair Overeem. At heavyweight, man, anything can happen. It just takes a couple shots here and there. The Tom Aspinall fight, that was a little concerning. He got pretty dominated in that fight and then got armbarred. So, I mean, maybe that's what happens here. But, I don't know. Something just tells me Romanov, like, I feel like he's going to get stung on the feet or something. And, next thing is dude shooting him for takedowns. But if Volkov can keep defending some at least or get back up, I still feel like Volkov on the feet, he'll be throwing the more combinations. And if both of them are tired, I got to go with Volkov on that one. So my pick, Alexander Volkov to defeat Alexander Romanov. I'll take him to win by a decision. In the main event of the evening, we have Petr Yan, 16-4, taking on Merab Dvalishvili, 15-4, in a bantamweight bout. So for this fight, you got Petr Yan, who obviously was the champion before, back in the day, right? No, but he defeated Jose Aldo, absolutely killed him. 5th round KO TKO, put up the numbers on him, right? Lost to Aljamain Sterling because he got DQ'd, but basically was winning the fight. Defeated Corey Sandhagen. Then he fought Aljamain Sterling again, and I guess you could say he got taken down, less positioning. One of the judges thought he won that fight, but he lost via decision. Then he took on Sean O'Malley. One of the judges felt that he won the fight, and then the other two didn't. So Sean O'Malley was able to come out that one. Now that one, Jan's fault probably for not landing more strikes. I mean, he got outstruck with significant strikes, 84 to his 58. So you could argue that. Now, granted, he had higher significant strike landed, right? So, I mean, the controversy could go on and whatever. 6 of 13 takedowns. So obviously went and landed more takedowns. 5 minutes and 44 seconds of control. Everyone else is arguing that, well, what did he do with it? I mean, honestly, we've seen it go both ways, though, right? When someone has absolutely all the control, but then doesn't do anything, and then the guy on the feet wins because he tagged him twice, and then people are like, well, what about the guy who got the takedown? We've seen it both on each side. I mean, at the end of the day, they're close fights, and when you leave them to somebody else to judge who's just watching them from the cage side, I mean you just got to go with their opinion or not. Like, literally, in both of those fights, somebody thought Yan won the fight, but he didn't. On paper, he didn't, so he's gotta chalk it up. But at the same time, go for the kill, man. Like, when you take him down, you gotta be dropping bombs on his head, right? I mean, you could argue both ways either way. So I think they were close fights. Yeah, I mean, he could literally go back and fight Sterling and O'Malley again and might just get both wins back. Like, he might get the wins, right? And he might be able to not do it by split decision. So you don't really know when the fight is that close. I mean, at any moment, Yan could have put O'Malley away. O'Malley could have put him away against Sterling. I mean, if Yan would have landed 2 takedowns too, would it have been, who knows, right? If he landed 5 more significant, I don't know. If he would have dropped him. It's stuff like that. We've seen robberies. We've seen good decisions. We've seen mid decisions. We've seen all kinds of decisions. And like I said, when you leave it up to the judges, unfortunately, that's just how that shit goes. So for Petr Yan, I still look at him. Very, very decorated fighter. I think he's very dangerous all around, not just in one aspect of the game. He has dangerous striking, great power, the ability to kind of dart forward, judge that distance. He also can utilize wrestling offensively and defensively. Great grappling skills. Finds ways to win fights, good scrambles. Like I said, good power. I mean, the way he took out Aldo, I mean, he just Jesus Christ, like, and see in that fight he let go, right? 194 significant strikes to Aldo's 83. I mean, who's lighting up Aldo like that, right? Outside of maybe Max Holloway. For Merab Dvalishvili coming into this fight on a roll ever since his first 2 losses inside the UFC, but in his last fight, very controversial. I feel like Merab Dvalishvili's last fight was even more controversial than Jan's fight against O'Malley and Sterling, like, combined. Just because, like, granted, yeah, Aldo didn't land the more significant strikes, but, like, I feel like they didn't even count Aldo defending 16 takedowns. Like, that has to mean something, right? Like, he literally didn't allow Dvalishvili to utilize, if not his main attack at all. But then, like, I guess when you're watching the fight, they're commentating saying that, Rogan is basically saying that that Aldo really isn't landing any. He's not utilizing the volume, even though he's defending the takedowns. And granted, yeah, I mean, Dvalishvili, when you defend 16 takedowns, you're gonna get a little bit tired. So maybe he was just so focused on doing that. But I mean, it was a close fight, and I don't really feel like Dvalishvili like destroyed him or anything like that. I mean, he just took him. I mean, he didn't take him down. He kind of just stayed on top of him or whatever. And like I said, you could treat that like, holy shit, he was so dominant, or you could look at it as like, well, Aldo defended 16 of his takedowns. Like, holy, Dvalishvili wasn't really able to do anything either. Before that, he defeated Marlon Moraes, but at this point, you got to defeat Marlon Moraes. Against Cody Stamann, he defeated him, unanimous decision. John Dodson, no longer in there. Gustavo Lopez. Okay, so Jan has fought the better competition. Jan has definitely fought really good wrestlers, taken down people, insane strikers. I mean, I feel like in this one, unless Jan gets stuck constantly getting taken down and, I don't know, just is like pretty hesitant to throw anything and has like super low volume, like, I don't see how he doesn't hurt Dvalishvili somewhere in there and kind of take over the fight maybe midway. Like, maybe early on, Dvalishvili, maybe he's going for the takedown, maybe he gets a couple, but Jan's popping back up. He's pressuring forward. But at the same time, it's like, I still feel like Jan's going to outland him. I mean, I don't think when Jan gets up, he's going to just do nothing. So I think, you got to think too that Jan's pretty pissed. Like, both of his last fights, he basically could have just been on the opposite side of that decision and be, 3-0 now in his last 3 fights instead of 1-2. So he's pissed. He wants to go out there. He wants to defeat, get back in there, go against Sterling, go against whoever the hell's the champion, put his name out there. So I think Dvalishvili is going to have to show a little bit more than just constant grindy wrestling. Now, I know he can do it for 5 rounds or whatever, but I still feel like he's going to have to be a little bit more dominant than that. He's going to have to open up on his feet. He's going to have to land. He's going to have to constantly land something on his feet, keep the volume up, possibly even hurt Jan at some point. He's going to have to do something like that because Jan's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with him. I think he might even defend the takedown. And not just like Aldo, where like after he defends, he's still kind of stuck a little bit. I think Jan's going to keep going for it. And I wouldn't even be surprised to see Jan going for a takedown, right? Do something like that. Like, we saw him take down we saw him take down Aljamain Sterling in their first fight 7 times. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Jan even go for his own takedown. I think he stays aggressive. I think he pieces him up for 5 rounds, shows him that it's not just about grindy wrestling, and basically gets back in there. And he's pissed, man. Petr Yan is pissed. He's motivated. Like, he doesn't want to lose another split decision. I guarantee that. So I'm going to go Petr Yan on this one until I see something else. So I'll go Petr Yan to defeat Merab Dvalishvili. I'll take him to win by a decision. And so that'll do it, guys, for my UFC Las Vegas main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place in March 11th, 2023. Leave your comments down below. Tell me who you're picking. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.